In this chapter, we are going to talk about change management and at the same time project budgeting. We're gonna discuss. Organization when they are doing different projects, using in different project the methodology they apply. There's again important tools and technique to see different constraint and the challenges in one risk mitigation. The organization project team basically need the lead the project towards success, and one of the key challenge within project management is change management. Though change management is the process to use different tools and technique to manage different resources, but there's always a need of alteration, modification, and changes in the plan procedures or the planning process to achieve the required outcome from the set business objective. So the project management basically focusing on the task to achieve project requirements, and change management basically focuses on the resources impacted by that change. So that's what we're gonna talk before we discuss how the constraint or the challenge of budgeting can be properly handled within the context of project management. So change management is our discussion today. We need to talk what exactly we mean by change management. We will ask the question, and I would like that you think about, how change happens in any project. So project itself is basically bringing change in the organization. Business as usual is the way we are doing of our day in day out activities for the operations tasks and operation activities to be performed, transforming input into output of the set objective of the manufacturing or servitization organization. However, we need to change this operation processes sometime, or we want to design a new product or manufacture or offer new services. Basically, that becomes the reason for a project. So project is basically itself a change. But now when we're running a project, we are managing a project, there is always need to think how to do the way the resources are allocated. If there is a need of changing the availability of resources or reallocation of resources, how we can then manage a change within the processes or different procedures and practices, allocation of resources within particular project. So the answer for change management, we say in addition, anything that has to add values or the processes or resources, addition, modification, removal of the authorized, planned, or supported services or service component and its associated documentation according to Prince 2 is called change management. A movement out of the current state, how things are today, though a transition from the current state to the future state, from what it is now and to be how things will be in future. This transition is basically you will need to build a bridge from current to future state is change management. In simple thinking about how to define change management, it is important to provide context related to two other key concepts, the change itself and the project management. For example, we know change management and project management are two critical disciplines that are applied to a variety of organizational change to improve the likelihood of success and return on investment. It is not just merely prescribe the change and expect it to happen. Creating change within any processes takes hard work and again an understanding of what must actually take place to make the change happen successfully. To begin, let's look at the formal definition of change management and project management there's a two key disciplines required to bring a change to any organization. So we look into project management. We know is project management is the can be achieved or accomplished through the application and integration of the project management processes of initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and closing as the key processes according to the body of knowledge of project management. However, change management is basically the process for tools and techniques to manage resources, including human resources side of change to achieve the required business or the project outcome. So change management incorporate the organization tools that can be within any project to be utilized to help individuals or project team for successful transition to achieve the set objective of the particular project. So we are looking here at one end that control the life cycle of all change that enabling beneficial change to made with minimum distribution or disruption to the services, let's say IT services, according to the ITIL, Information Technology Infrastructure Library. So they define change management as basically enabler for beneficial changes within the IT if there's a need of disruption. Change management is a comprehensive, cyclic, and structured approach for transitional individual groups or organization from a current state to future state with intended business benefit according to the Project Management Institute. Change management is the process by which changes to the project scope, deliverables, timescale, or resources are formally requested, evaluated, and approved prior to implementation as per the approved project plan. This is achieved by understanding the business and system drivers requiring the change, identifying the cost and benefit of the adopting the change, and formulating a structured plan for implementing change. So during the life of the project, it is very important for the project leader, the project manager, or the project team to understand if the change is mandatory to be incorporated within the project plan, or is it if something which is not mandatory or can be ignored. So this need a negotiation between the project client or the project team if the change really need to be taken on board. Then if yes, then how the change has to be managed, and then again it has to change the specification of the end result or the product, as well as it gonna be incurring extra time or cost. So this is number of important elements to be taken in consideration if there is a need for any change within the processes and practices and resources of any project. So the change goals based on the standardized methods and procedures, they are used to efficient and prompt handling of all changes. It basically, one of the objectives is to contributing to meeting governance, legal, contractual, and regulatory requirements, as well as reducing failed changes and therefore project disruption and failure, to avoid delivering change promptly to meet project timescale is again important here, while contributing to better estimation of the quality, time, and cost of change, while assigning the risk associated with the transition, and then looking to the change within project management context. We look to the requirement for project and then see if the change management really to be in place to ensure changes are implemented correctly to reduce any potential risk. For example, to identify and then assess as well as control any potential and approve changes to baseline and the component within a project, we need to see if the change is inevitable. A systematic approach is needed to identify, assess, and control issues that cause change. Every change needs to be approved by the proper authority before it is incorporated or it is being processed. Baseline and the versions are essential for effective managing change if there is a need for change in the specification, time frame, or any other important factors of the project management need to be taken in consideration for proper change management. So change management in the context of a project, you can see in this graphical illustration. So we have to see the people there with the authority to make change in any project context, project board, for example, or the higher authority as a governing body. If the change is requested, we have to identify the change idea, why it is being initiated and requested. We put in the log. The need to review, examine the change. Is it mandatory or unnecessary? Is it too early stage of the project is possible, or is too late during the life of the project? The purpose of the change, this need to be evaluated, and then the decision need to be taken by the authorized body with approval, and then when it is given a green signal, it has to be implemented accordingly if there is a need for change. For example, you are doing a construction project, and during the life of the project, the owner of the project requests the door has to be changed into French doors, or the windows need to be glazed glass windows. Then this change need to be approved, and then all the engineering specification, measurement, and all the order which was placed earlier from the supplier need to be revised, and that may incur extra time and cost at the same time. And then you put the all updates in the change register or the change management log. So change management in project, basically we have different types of changes that are requested with the specification. We need to have a complete definition and specification, and that has to elaborate why the changes are requested, and then what are the key specification. We need to see the change control is important in the project, because if you don't control the change, then it may the project may be never ending activity. A systematic approach to managing all changes made to a product or system, basically the purpose is to ensure that no unnecessary changes are made, that all changes are documented, that projects are not unnecessarily disrupted, and that resources are used efficiently. Otherwise the project can become a white elephant and become very, very costly. Appropriate boundaries must be set that will both establish and limit the type of changes to be considered, which is more beneficial at the same time. And then we have to see that the resources are appropriately utilized, and if change is required to keep a project going, the change must be accepted. If the change is discretionary, that change must be weighed against existing project condition and then established boundaries. And that's very important to analyze and evaluate at which stage of the project the change is requested. Is it mandatory or is it unnecessary? So when we look into change control, it is again very important that the value and priority of the project is very visible and important, and we have to set high limit for discretionary change to avoid any unwanted risks to face with the project to be a disaster. So timing, if the change is requested if the change request is arrived at the early stage of the project, the change can probably be absorbed. But if the project is 50% completed, and if new changes are coming that interfere with timely completion, will be really seriously a blow. There will be a blow to the project completion. We need to think about revise the timetable and as well as the budgeting. So cost, time scale, the end benefits, quality, the personals, and they all need to be considered, that how the change can affect all these elements within project management. Not just the cost with the change to be requested or implemented, but again the impact on the project outcome and the resources to deliver that milestone or particular part of the project needs a proper guideline and specification with complete control to be in place. So change management is basically overarching approach taken in any organization to move from the current to future state. However, change request is a proposal to alter some part of the project specification sometime. So we need to be more in control if the change need to be negotiated by the person who is requesting the change. If the change is accepted and is implemented during the project, then we have to update the change management log with the change management plan to be in place, which defines activities and roles to manage and control the change during the execution of the project for monitoring and control. And that again, very important that the project change management plan defines activities and roles to manage and control change throughout the project life cycle, to understand who raised the change, what is the reason for change, what return is expected from the change, for example, and what kind of risks is involved, resources required to deliver that change, and who is responsible for creating, testing, and implementing the change, and relationship between suggested change and other potential changes within the life of the project. So change management plan has to be in place for standard project execution to accomplish the scope, schedule, and cost control that is synchronized with the current development of the project, visibility of the scope and cost for any changes, effective team communication for transparency, clear roles and responsibility with regard to managing changes, and communication to stakeholders for awareness as well as for approval, consistent quality of deliverables that meet the organizational expectations is very, very important, and a consistent decision-making process regarding the implementation of change throughout the life of the project that needs to put in place change management process. When we say change management process, it is basically including a sequence of the steps or activities that move a change from inception to delivery. So change request management process is within the project management system or any system within the engineering is a process of requesting, determining attainability, planning, implementing, and evaluating of change to a system. Its main goal are to support the processing and traceability of change to any interconnected set of factors. So within the project management, change management process, from its initiation when it's requested, analyzing it, either it's approved or denied, implement, if it's just approved, then the change to be implemented, and of course then it needs to be reviewed and re-examined during the life of the project. What is the key role? The role of the project change management process. We need to understand that the key role in change management include conducting change impact analysis, assessing and managing key stakeholders, developing and implementing effective communication plans, creating as well as delivering training and engagement of all the personals or key resources is very, very important. So the project manager, the team leader, anyone who's going to be responsible for change management, they need to play an important role in it as an individual or as a team. So we need to understand the sponsor of the or people. They are basically key leaders or managers. They are the key leader. They have the leadership role. This is important for change management role, who play the key role as a leader. And then project team, and then the change management. Sometimes there are key practitioners involved here. So we are looking for the role of individuals. They are given certain role within change management, and how they can perform as individual or as a team that particular role or assigned task, with key description you can see in this slide. And the following slide you can see how a team, a manager, a leader, or a sponsors can play their role with certain certain responsibilities to make sure if the change is evaluated, negotiated, is it going to be something which bring within the scope of the project any change, or it's going to be a possible potential risk can be considered and evaluated accordingly as per the acceptance and approval of the change to be incorporated or implemented within the project life cycle. So after looking to the description of all the roles, we need to look into the log, and we put the any change we need to accept, or it is denied, rejected, or accepted, has to be incorporated within the project change management log. The change log is typical document, is a type of document like we use for like a risk log, quality log, communication log. So the change project change log is type of documentation, or as a tabular register that contain the list of changes that are made during the entire life of the project, from project initiation through its design of planning phase to execution and closure. It tracks the progress of each change based on its review, approval, or rejection implemented during the life of the project till its closure. The term log, when used in reference to project management terminology, it refers to the full and complete document that contains all of the items that are needed to properly historically record and all events happening during the life of the project, and occurrences for any change requested. Is it something important, low, medium, critical, when this happened, who is responsible? They all have to come in this document as a project key document, plan of the document, and in this case, in a project change, we have to update it time to time if the change is either accepted or rejected. The next discussion is our budgeting. So the project budget is a tool which is used by a project team or project manager to estimate the total cost of the project. A project budget template includes a detailed estimate of all costs that are likely to be incurred before the project is completed. That is the best estimation as a baseline. So we can use a number of steps. We can use different tools and technique to estimate or make the baseline for the total cost of the project. So a budget identifies the planned expenditure for the project. It is used as a baseline against which the actual expenditure and predicted eventual cost of the project can be reported. Cost control is the process by which actual costs are measured against the budget of the project. So that's very important to address the key constraint of the cost with the help of this tool as project budgeting. When the project budgeting is in place, a project budget should contain three major elements. It can be using tools like a base cost estimation. It includes all activity included in the work breakdown structure and other necessary cost bottom up to calculate all small work packages, all small nitty-gritty of the project to be calculated when we go bottom up in the work breakdown structure to make the best estimation for the total cost of the project. Contingency reserves that is applied for money set aside against specific contingency responses in the risk management plan. It's just a backup plan, anything for rainy season if something goes wrong, what is the plan B if plan A doesn't work. And then of course the management reserves money set aside 10 to 20%, depend on the nature and complexity of the project, for any unidentified risk. We can use base cost estimation, that is needed to be accounted for in the base cost estimation, which include the staff direct cost, for example, the resources, the accommodation, direct indirect cost, as well as we have to think about the variable and fixed cost. We need to think about the accommodation, consumable, expenses for traveling, different refreshment, capital expenses, licensing. So all direct, indirect, or all the variable and fixed cost to be taken in consideration to make a project budget. When we say base cost estimation, that's the direct cost as well as indirect cost, and then we look into the fixed and variable cost, and then we make the list of all the activities, all the resources, all the important other cost which comes from utilities, or for example which comes from different hiring the equipments, or hiring different resources, or purchasing. So that needs to be all tabulated with within the budget, different for example component for variable and fixed cost. When we calculate labor cost, for example, it is again very important to understand how much it is going to be per unit per person cost, depend on the number of hours required to complete certain project. For example, an IT technician, that the salary for 1 year will be £30,000. So what is the hourly work calculated annually? So we say 37 hours per week, so we have 52 weeks in a year, so this is the 1924 hours is the total work to be completed. So what is the hourly rate? We divide 30,000, which is the annual salary, by the number of hours, so we can calculate and find out that the per hour rate, the project, it will going to cost the project is £15.59 per hour during the life of the project. So the IT technician hours required for a project is, let's say, 10, so we need to multiply 10 by 15.59. So we need an IT technician for particular project for 10 hours, so that individual, he or she, has to be paid £155.9 for the 10 hours job. We also do the calculation and put all the information in the log. We call it the project budget. There's a template, for example, an example in this slide, so you can design in Excel sheet, or you can use the MS Project, or you can, there are so many other user-friendly softwares which provide the spreadsheet for making tables for any project. When we're doing calculation, don't forget to add the reserves, the contingency, 5 to 10%, depend again on the project. Some projects have more than 20%, 25% reserves as a contingency, so that is for the risk, if something happens as a potential risk. So what is the backup plan B for unforeseen reason? Please continue your discussion for budgeting, change management, why you should include change management in your project business plan. For example, what is the project budgeting, and what are the key steps in any project effective budget calculation? Please share your thoughts and ideas and debate on this during our week 10 discussion forum. Read the chapter for change management and chapter for costing or budgeting, project budget, from the Harvey Meller, your core textbook, or from the recommended book from Pinto 2015, Project Management Achieving Competitive Advantage, 4th edition. That's also available in the library, or you can go online resources for the online version. Take care.